Are we all set? Good evening, everybody. The West Hollywood City Council acknowledges that the land on which we gather, and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood, is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and the Gabrielino Kizh peoples. Tonight is Thursday, September 18th. It's about 6:30 p.m. This is a meeting of the City of West Hollywood, and I will call this meeting to order. Could we have, I'll invite everyone who is able to stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gillig, could we have a roll call, please?
And good evening, commissioners. Tonight, Commissioner Solomon is absent, so the voting record will reflect that for all items. Commissioner Lombardi.
Present.
Commissioner Hoopengarner.
Present.
Commissioner Harris.
Present.
Commissioner Carvalero.
Here.
Vice Chair Jones.
Here.
Chair Gregoire.
Here.
And we have a 6-member quorum.
Next item is approval of the agenda. I would like to propose 2 changes this evening. One of the commissioners is going to have to recuse himself from item 10A. Therefore, I would like to propose that we move item 10A after item 10C. So we will do item 10B, 10C, and then proceed with item 10A.
I would second that motion.
Sorry?
I would second that motion.
The other change was I was going to suggest that we move item 14, items from staff, A and B, to right after the director's report. And finally, I would note for whoever's making the motion, I would note that staff is requesting a continuance of the approval of the minutes from the September 4th, 2025 meeting, and in approving the agenda, that item would be deemed continued. Commissioner Hoopengarner?
I second your motion.
Commissioner Hoopengarner made the motion. Is there a second?
Oh, your mark down here is the mover, so.
Okay, I've made the motion. Commissioner Hoopengarner seconded. Let's go to a vote.
And the motion passes with 6 ayes, approving the agenda as amended for September 18th, 2025, with 6 ayes.
Public comment, this time limited to a maximum of 20 minutes, has been set aside for the public to address the Planning Commission on any item that is not set for public hearing or any item that is not on tonight's agenda. In accordance with the Brown Act, public comment relating to business not appearing on the agenda cannot be acted upon or discussed by the Commission during the meeting, but may be referred to staff for report on a future agenda, ordered, received, and filed, or referred to the proper department for administrative resolution. Staff requests that all persons wishing to address the Commission fill out a speaker slip, give it to the Commission Secretary. The Commission requests that when you begin speaking, please state your name and the name of the city where you reside. Individuals may address the Commission for up to 3 minutes unless the Commission determines a different time limit. Mr. Gillig, do we have any public comment?
Chair, we have no public comments in Zoom for general public comment, and I have no public speakers here in chambers under the general public comment.
Great. Director's report. Director Maricic.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Nick Maricic, Director of Community Development. Wanted to share some work in our long-range planning division. Work is continuing, as you probably have seen, on the Zoning Improvement Program for Housing, also known as ZIP, with a number of ongoing community engagement events. We've just completed a series of focus groups with stakeholders from around the city, and next month, on October 8th and October 16th, we'll be having additional community workshops. At these events, staff will present findings for enhancing opportunities for housing in residential and commercial priority areas, and we'll be asking community members to share their thoughts on draft strategies for increasing diverse housing choices and housing production throughout the city. Those events will be October 8th in person at 6 p.m. at Plummer Park, rooms 5 and 6, and October 16th online at 12 noon. And you can register online and also get more information about the program and these events at engage.weho.org/zip. I also wanted to update you on some recent City Council actions. At their meeting earlier this week, the City Council denied the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of planning entitlements for 8300 Sunset, the site of the former Standard Hotel. They also adopted an ordinance that designates new fire hazard severity zones within the city. And when these will trigger requirements for new projects to meet additional building code standards, it will also affect the implementation of some state planning and housing laws, and we'll be applying these as necessary in our reviews on projects on a project-by-project basis. The council also approved the 30% plans for phase 1 of the Fountain Avenue Streetscape Plan, along with a contract amendment to accelerate the delivery of that phase 1 of the project. And they also authorized staff to initiate phase 2 of the project, which will involve a visioning process for a comprehensive streetscape plan for the corridor. That concludes my report. Thank you for your service and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the director? Hearing none, thank you so much. Now we move to item 14, items from staff, planning manager's update and subcommittee management.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Planning Commissioners. Saima Qureshi, Planning Division Manager. Looking ahead on your schedules, I'll be starting with Design Review Subcommittee. September 25th meeting is canceled. There are no items listed for October 9th, and then October 23rd, we have 2 projects tentatively going to Design Review Subcommittee. One is a residential project, and the other is a creative sign. Long Range Planning Subcommittee, there are no items currently on any of the dates for the rest of the year at this time. And then Planning Commission meetings, October 2nd meeting is canceled. October 16th, there will be 2 zone text amendments. One is streamlining for qualifying housing projects. The other is state's parking bill implementation. And we will also have 2 items related to general plan consistency for property acquisitions. So we will have 4 items on October 16th meeting. November 6th meeting, we'll have, currently we have just 1 item, which is related to 9200 Sunset Billboard. And then another one, which is general plan consistency. December 4th meeting is anticipated, the staff is anticipating to bring forward the ZIP program to you. And then December 18th meeting is canceled. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Great. Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Will you repeat? You said the Long Range Planning Subcommittee, there's no items planned for the rest of the year?
Yeah, currently not. Nothing's
Okay.
planned right now.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. We don't have any consent calendar items, and we don't have any public hearings subject to the Housing Accountability Act. We have 3 public hearings this evening that require a public hearing. The first one will be item 10B, 854 Westmount Drive. Could we have a staff report, please? And while we're waiting for that to come up, I'll say this is a public hearing regarding a proposed tentative tract map for the conversion of occupied rental housing into a common interest development, and it's located at 854 Westmount Drive. Oh, sorry. There we go.
There we go. Sorry about that. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Derek Purification, City of West Hollywood, Associate Planner. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold right now, so sorry if I sound a little funny. But anyways, the item before you is the request for a tentative tract map for the subdivision of an existing two-story, 5-unit residential building into a common interest development located at 854 Westmount Drive. The proposed project is categorically exempt pursuant to SECO guidelines per section 15301, which is also known as existing facilities. The subject site, the subject property is zoned R3A, which is a residential multifamily medium density property, and the subject site is approximately 6,800 square feet, which is previously developed with a single-story duplex. In January of 2019, there was a staff level improvement for the demolition of the existing duplex that I just mentioned to construct a two-story, 5-unit residential development with 11 subterranean parking spaces. This development comprised of all 2-bedroom units with an average unit size of about 1,140 square feet. And the development itself was completed just last year, March 1st of 2024. The building itself, it meets all required development standards for multifamily developments in the zone that it's in, which is the R3A zone. And all 5 units have been occupied by tenants since the completion of the development. And as such, the owner must follow all requirements for the rental conversion process under the Ellis Act if they intend to have the units vacated prior to the conversion. And lastly, I wanted to point out a typo that's in the resolution under condition 5.2. There was a typo that read Detroit Street. That should actually read West Mountain Drive, obviously. The condition itself reads, the applicant shall record the final map, a dedicated easement for public street and sidewalk purposes necessary to ensure a combined minimum width of 10 feet for sidewalk and parkway along the project frontage of West Mountain Drive. So I wanted to read that into the record. That pretty much concludes my presentation. Staff was able to make all the findings and is recommending approval of the subdivision pursuant to the conditions in the draft resolution PC 25-1618. And I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is actually here as well.
Do we have any commissioner questions for staff? Hearing none. Do we have an applicant presentation?
The applicant does have a presentation, but I guess we'll leave it up to you if you actually want to see the presentation, but they're more than welcome to speak as well.
We defer to the applicant on whether he would like to make a presentation. You'll have 10 minutes. Please state your name and the city of residence, and you can begin when you're ready.
Can you hear me okay on here?
Yes.
My name is Shane Swerdlow. I'm a land use consultant at Craig Lawson and Company Land Use Consultants based in Los Angeles, joined by the applicant, Nick Hilaris. And if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes. Okay. My name is Nick Hilaris. I'm a resident here in West Hollywood, and I have my son, Theodore Hilaris, here with me. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And Nick is from Metro's Capital, which owns and manages this building. I do have PowerPoint slides. I don't think it's essential to walk through them, as Derek already did a thorough job about how the building conforms with relevant zoning policies and this request for a tentative tract map. But we appreciate your consideration of this request. We're available to answer any questions. As Derek noted, the building was completed last year. It's really a beautiful design by Lork and O'Hare Leahy architects, and features just really nice finishes on the exterior and interior. I know that when you first had tenants move in, some asked about the opportunity to purchase units in the building. There's no immediate plans to actually convert these to condos, but this request will provide the flexibility for these to become for sale units in the future. And there is quite a high demand for for sale units and housing within the city of West Hollywood, and condos are a great way to achieve that need. So we think this is an excellent candidate for condominiums and appreciate your review. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Great. Do we have any commissioner questions for the applicant at this time?
And Chair, if I can intervene, we do have staff on Zoom from the Rent Stabilization Department if you have any questions regarding that aspect.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Gillig, do we have any public comment?
No, we have no public comments for this item.
Great. I will close the public comment section of the meeting since we don't have any public comment. Any commissioners have any questions of staff or the applicant at this time? If not, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
And I would just ask the motion maker and the second, we did have one minor modification, just to
With
ensure.
the correction as
Okay,
proposed
thank
by
you.
staff.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner, okay, thank you.
Terrific. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote.
And the motion passes with 6 ayes, approving resolution number, got a little out of order, one moment, please. Resolution number 251618 as presented and with staff's amendments. We do have an appeal process for this item. The resolution number 251618, the Planning Commission just approved for the property located at 854 Westmount Drive, memorializes the Commission's final action on this matter. This action is subject to appeal to the City Council. Appeals must be submitted within 10 calendar days from this date to the City Clerk's office. Appeals must be in writing and accompanied by the required fees. The City Clerk's office can provide appeal forms and information about waiver of fees. The appeal deadline will be Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 5 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Gillig. We'll move on now to item 10C, 9255 Sunset Boulevard. This will be a public hearing to consider a proposed request to allow for the intensification of use for an existing 4,400 square foot eating establishment to include live entertainment and full alcohol service for the property located at 9255 Sunset Boulevard. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, and good evening, Chair Gorga and Commissioners. Before you this evening is a request to allow for the intensification of use for an eating establishment to include live entertainment and full alcohol service. The project site is located at 9255 Sunset Boulevard. Why isn't this? Okay, there we go. The project site is located at 9255 Sunset Boulevard within the ground floor of a 12-story commercial building. The tenant space consists of approximately 4,400 square feet and is located on the ground floor along Sunset Boulevard. Prior to this tenant, the space was occupied by restaurants Hudson House and prior to that, Nonna of Italy. An existing 366 square foot outdoor patio area fronting Sunset Boulevard was previously approved at this location, and it will remain as is with no live entertainment as conditioned. The Drake indicates they are a fine dining restaurant serving American cuisine with live music performances. Modeled after its location in Laguna Beach, the Drake on Sunset is intended to provide a high-end dining experience where great food meets great music. This use is intended to enhance the vitality of the Sunset Strip by providing a sophisticated destination that integrates fine dining, live music, and nightlife in a way that's consistent with the Sunset Strip's corridors' established entertainment character. Although the business is designed to function primarily as a restaurant with live entertainment, staff has evaluated the proposal and determined that the most appropriate entitlement is a conditional use permit. Accordingly, staff has applied conditions consistent with a nightclub, bar, or similar use as defined in the municipal code under section 19.36.200. These standards govern both design and operations, including requirements for interior and exterior features, as well as best management practices. Its purpose is to ensure that the use operates in a controlled manner and do not adversely impact or affect surrounding properties or the broader neighborhood. In June, the applicant held a virtual neighborhood meeting and no members of the public attended. Staff would like to strike the last sentence of condition 10.3 in the resolution, which states there shall be no amplified sound or music in the outdoor patio, as condition 10.12 goes into specific outdoor patio noise requirements with regard to ambient noise allowed within the outdoor patio. This concludes my presentation. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Before we go to questions of staff from the commissioners, are there any disclosures about public conversations?
Yeah, I met with the applicant's representative and we discussed items in the staff report.
Great. Anybody else? Any questions for staff? Commissioner Hoopengarner.
Lori, is there an existing alcohol permit from the previous restaurants?
There is, yes.
So what difference would we be approving? Is the existing one only beer and wine?
No, it's full alcohol. The only thing that we are adding to that is live entertainment.
Oh, because the description says it's full alcohol service, and in the staff report, you go into the ABC requirements, so that's why I was a little confused as to what we're approving, because if it's already got a license, I mean, alcohol licenses go with the land, so.
So the existing use is a restaurant with full alcohol service, and under the municipal code, definition of a restaurant limits the live entertainers to 2. So therefore, the Drake intends on having additional live entertainers, potentially like 3 or 4. And so the only way to approve that was through like a bar, nightclub, or similar use. So it's kind of like a hybrid use,
Okay, so the alcohol is being included for the nightclub approval purposes.
Correct. So the only thing we're adding is live entertainment, which kicks it into the bar, nightclub
Got
category.
it. Thank you. That was I was a little confused there. Okay, great. Couple other quick questions. Thank you for your discussion on 10.3, because I'm trying to understand the difference between no amplified music and speakers.
So generally in outdoor dining areas, most businesses want speakers. They want ambient music because it's a little boring and quiet without ambient music. So we are allowing speakers. If you look at condition 10.12, the applicant has agreed to these conditions, which basically talks about placement of the speakers, that they will not be loud. It's basically just to be background music, no subwoofers, that they're pointed inward, and they're not audible at any time from any property lines, most notably the adjacent residential.
Okay, because the whole ambient music, but then there's speakers, that was kind of, so you're saying, I understand there's no live performers out in the patio.
Correct.
Okay, so in 10.12, the volume limiter, there is no discussion of what the limits are, just that there will be a limiter. So how does that work?
I believe the applicant has more information on that. They are modeling after their other location,
Okay.
and I guess there is a limiter, so I think he can provide information on that.
Okay. So back to your statement that you want to strike, no, wait, you said it was 10.3, that there should be no amplified sound or music on the outdoor patio. So you want to strike that, but then it's also in the description in 2.2. The last sentence of 2.2. It says, no amplified music or live entertainment shall be permitted in the outdoor patio area.
So maybe we can strike the amplified music component and just say no live entertainment shall be permitted within the outdoor patio area, since condition 10.12 discusses that further.
Okay. That would bring it into congruence then? Okay.
That works.
Thank you. 2.3, Are there residences in this building? I understood it to be a commercial building completely, office space.
Yes, that should say commercial. My apologies. So 2.3 should, instead of residential, commercial. There are no residents in this building.
But are there minimum parking standards? Does that say, that rule is a residential rule, so why would it apply to commercial?
It applies to commercial
Too?
as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that needs to be corrected in 2.3?
We'll change the language that says residential to commercial.
Commercial, okay. All right. 8.3, vehicles belonging to independent contractors, subcontractors, and employees engaged in construction are going to be allowed to park in the encroachment permits and on the streets. Is that a new thing? Because my understanding, every single resolution we've had is there will absolutely be no construction employee parking on any city streets at any time.
Yeah, I think it's specific to construction, and it's my understanding that they have already received their tenant improvement for the interior, and no, there will not be any additional construction for this change.
Well, I'm just really reluctant to vote for something that allows employee parking on streets when every other project that's denied. So I'm confused as to why it's even there.
Okay, can we get back to that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I can maybe try to explain it. The way this condition is written, it's very specific to engaged in construction or renovation, so it's not intended for employees parking.
I understand, but we have very strict rules about construction worker parking on our city streets, as in never ever. That's the whole point. Okay. So in 9.24, that's a eating establishment with live entertainment and full alcohol service is not required to serve a bona fide meal with sale or consumption of alcoholic beverages. Yet throughout the staff report and the description, its primary use is food.
Correct. We've looked at this as a nightclub bar or similar use. So as such, all the conditions in here are for a nightclub bar or similar use. This application, they intend to make eating the primary use, but that's not to say that if you go to the establishment, you can order a drink without ordering a bona fide meal.
Okay. But that doesn't go with the ABC. That is just for this CUP for this project.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. 11.10. On security. The operator of the business shall use their on security. Is that supposed to be on-site security?
We can
Or
change
own security, or I think there's an oopsie there.
So we can change that language to say they're on-site security personnel.
Okay.
And Commissioner Hoopengartner, I think on some of those, maybe they might be answered in applicant presentation if there are questions for staff, and then of course during deliberations.
Okay,
if
just
the commission as a body.
on security has no meaning. So I'm trying to understand what the correct word is. So just in 11.16, normally when we have a review process, it comes to planning, even if it's on consent. So was there a particular reason that this was going to the director instead of planning?
Conditions in 11.0 are conditional use permit and development permit conditions of approval. And we, in talking to our legal counsel, agreed that CUP and DVP conditions with regard to CUP and DVP could go back to a director's hearing if there were certifiable complaints.
Okay, but I guess I'm, at the standard and other places, we conditioned it to come back to the planning commission. So I just am curious as to why this one is, instead of being directed to coming back to planning, to come to the director. What's the difference? They're both noise and operation issues, correct?
Correct.
So what would the difference be?
Commissioner Hoopengarner, I think that's one that might be best addressed during deliberations to the extent the commission is interested in.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I wanted to understand if staff had a particular reason for the difference. No, okay. That's it.
Great. Any other questions from commissioners? Great. Hearing none. Applicant presentation. Would the applicant like to come, make a presentation? You'll have 10 minutes. Please state your name, city of residence.
Great. Mark Lehman, longtime West Hollywood resident. I'm here representing the Drake on Sunset at 9255 Sunset Boulevard, where great food meets great music, which is their logo. First and foremost, I want to thank Lori Yelton and other staff members, including Adrian Gallo, for helping us navigate the CUP process here. It was sort of, the Drake presents sort of a unique situation and opportunity in West Hollywood, being a full-fledged restaurant that also wants to have live entertainment. And the Drake, in this case, is an existing restaurant and with live entertainment in Laguna Beach that's been very successful since 2019, using that model, having a full fine dining restaurant, but with live entertainment, jazz and blues focused. Very unique use, I think one that'll be hugely popular and good for West Hollywood and the Sunset Strip. We don't have any offering like this in the city right now. I do want to stress that this will operate as a restaurant. The menu is included probably in the package. Very fine dining, great chef, great background. They've been providing food not only for their own restaurant in Laguna, but occasionally, as I've learned recently, for the hotels down there. And during COVID, they provided food for some of the hotels in Laguna Beach. Very, very successful dining operation with a very successful long-term presentation of jazz and blues and intimate entertainment. One of the things that's unique, I think, too, about the way they're presenting their entertainment is there's no stage on the site. They present their entertainment flush with the floor of the dining room. So they want a more intimate sort of live entertainment atmosphere, and that's what they do in Laguna Beach, and they're looking to do here. The founder of the group, Alec Glasser, unfortunately is not well and wasn't able to attend tonight, but Matthew Timmis, who is the COO of their operation here and in Laguna Beach, is available to answer any questions. He can provide some background on what happened with their operations down in Laguna Beach. As you may know, Laguna Beach is basically a residential community, and where they're located in Laguna Beach, in the south part of the city, they're not in the downtown central sort of business district. They deal with residences right around them. And they're very sensitive to that. They design their operations down there to be sensitive to the neighbors surrounding them. And now, 6 years later, they're still operating very successfully without incident in Laguna Beach. And it's their goal to do the same thing here. Let's see, a couple of issues that I see came up with Commissioner Hoopengarner that I can probably respond to. The outdoor dining with amplified speakers has already existed. Hudson House had the same situation. The outdoor dining is going to be probably tweaked a little bit, redecorated, but will stay the same. They're actually putting a more permanent structure on the outside, which is what they're moving forward with now. But the speakers will be basically the same as they've been historically, so there should not be any issue with outdoor sound from the outdoor dining area. As far as the contractors go, I've learned from Mr. Timmis that they have an agreement with the building that all the people working on the tenant improvements will be parking in the building. As you may know, that building has a lot of parking. I had my office in that building for many years, and I know what the parking situation is like, and there's always a lot of available parking, which is great for the restaurant, and I think in this case good because they can have on-site use for contractors. I'm available if anybody has any questions. We urge you to approve this. I think it'll be a great addition to our city, especially at a time where the Sunset Strip and the city in general really needs new models, new kinds of businesses like this to help invigorate our hospitality scene in the city. Thank you.
Great. Any commissioner questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Matthew would like to say a couple of words too as well. Thanks.
Good evening, Matthew Timmis, Laguna Beach, California. Council, thank you for allowing us to speak. We look forward to being welcome to the city and being a lively part, as any good restaurant is part of the community, and looking forward to engaging and being not only responsible, but something that's worthwhile as an addition, and we hope you consider us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner questions, Commissioner Harris.
Hi, yes, thank you for your presentation. Thank you, staff, also for your presentation on this topic. I just had a question regarding the outdoor patio. So the vision for the patio is to have speakers that are projecting sound that is the sound that is being played by the band that will be interior to the space. Is that correct?
Correct. And then when the band's not playing, it would be whatever ambient music is playing inside.
Okay, but the vision isn't to have the band actually play out on the outdoor patio?
No, and actually the conditions prohibit any live entertainment outside.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners at this time? Hearing none, thank you so much, and we'll go to public comment. Mr. Gillig, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Chair. We have no public comment on Zoom. We do have one public comment here in Chambers. Genevieve Morrill, you'll have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Been a long time, and welcome, Commissioner Harris. I don't know if I've met you officially as a commissioner yet, and also, Commissioner, I think I've met all the rest of you. I haven't been here in a while. I don't need a script for this. The Drake is an amazing opportunity for us to fill one of our vacant spaces, another restaurant, and also to diversify the entertainment that we have up on Sunset. You know, it's not, the days are gone where concert venues are going to be built. People can consume their entertainment in a lot of different ways now. And so to really try to look at how hotels and various restaurants can create small piano bars or jazz opportunities or these different types of entertainment opportunities that aren't like concert clubs and venues on the Strip. So it's really important. Also, the patio, I believe, is facing Sunset, and the noise from Sunset exceeds anything that speakers would provide up there because it's pretty loud with the traffic up there on Sunset. I like the fact that they're also going to enclose it, which also give a better experience for the guests to be on the patio listening to the music as well. So anything we can do to expand the restaurant. As you know, the hospitality industry has been really hit hard in this economy. And one of the things that we've worked on with the city is adopting our small business initiative, which really allows, and one of the things that I know Nick and his team really worked hard to bring us was to be able to provide ancillary uses within your CUP to try to find other ways. So if a concert venue, as an example, wants to do an exhibit or have a celebrity chef, they can be flexible in some of these. You know, businesses really need to pivot right now. The marketing strategy you had yesterday is obsolete tomorrow, and that's just the way it is these days. So being able to have different diversity up there in terms of entertainment is really important, as well as other areas of the city of West Hollywood. So like on Santa Monica Monica Boulevard and other places. So we really hope you support this. They're great operators. I went down to Laguna myself. They're just fantastic venue, very sophisticated. It's not like a hard drive-in nightclub or anything like that. It's perfect in the location it's at as well, across from the Soho House. So it's really an exciting opportunity for all of us to welcome them into West Hollywood. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Chair, that is our last public speaker for this item.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lehman, does the applicant have any rebuttal? Great, thank you so much. At this point, I'll close the public comment section of the hearing. And we'll now go to commissioner deliberations. It sounds like we've already identified a whole bunch of changes to make to the resolution. And I believe Commissioner Hoopengarner had some additional matters she wanted to discuss. Do you want to start?
Well, I, for one, am very excited about this opportunity. Boy, do we need it. I really only, you've heard my questions. I think my comments would be just in the resolution. I don't love that employee parking just being in there. I mean, I appreciate what Mr. Lehman has said about, you know, the fact that they have plenty of parking, and that's great. I just don't like it in the resolution because it sets a precedent. And ironically, Mr. Lehman and I have both been dealing with a problem in our neighborhood where a construction project has been parking construction workers on our streets. So, hence the issue. You know, open to discussion, but I would just kind of prefer, just because this is a new establishment, that it would come back to Planning Commission for review instead of to the director. It makes it more public, transparent forum for the, you know, for the community. But I'm open to discussion with that, with my colleagues with that. I mean, I think it sounds like a fabulous venue. I'm a huge fan of the blues and jazz and would love to be able to go there. So I'm looking forward to it myself personally. And I don't have any other further comments. I want to thank staff for adding that little paragraph about, you know, that no sound could be heard from residences, period. I think that's a great condition, and it protects our neighbors to the west, especially. And with that, you know, I would move with I noted 5 corrections. I would move the item, but I will wait to hear from my colleagues.
Anyone like to speak next? Commissioner Caballero.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hoopengartner. I would second. Based on everything that you said, I am very excited about this new opportunity in this part of the city, which is so appropriate for this type of restaurant, bar, entertainment venue. I completely agree with Genevieve. And this has come up in our design review meetings. It's like we can't continue implementing projects that are pre-pandemic in mind. We really need to pivot so that we don't have empty retail spaces. We need to rethink how we approach retail, restaurant, entertainment in the future, because it is shifting. And I feel very strongly about that, and it's come up in our design review meetings many times. So I'm very happy that this is something new and innovative for this site, and I think it's kind of the perfect site for it. So I'm happy to second the motion.
Anybody else? Vice Chair Jones?
Sure, thank you. I do just want to, I don't want to repeat anything, but do want to echo Commissioner Hoopengartner and Commissioner Caballero's comments about the project. I'm really excited about it. We definitely need something in that space, and I like that it adds just diversity to the existing entertainment that's available up on the Strip and up on Sunset more broadly. As regards kind of it coming back, I'm kind of two minds about it, and I don't want to split hairs too much, but I feel like in the past, we've typically asked projects to come back either in areas where we anticipate there being some kind of, you know, noise mitigation issue or want the community to be able to give feedback. You know, we had issues with a restaurant on Beverly, we had issues with Catch. And so, you know, wanted people to be able to come and give comments about it. Similarly with Total Wine, I know we had that come back, and that was a new kind of business in the city. This is a Sunset Strip property with live entertainment that'll be interior facing. I personally am comfortable with it staying with community development director, but again, I'm open to conversation on that. I don't have terribly strong feelings about it either way, but I don't know that I think like every new business or every new, intensification of use, especially on the Strip, needs to have it come back. But again, I don't have strong feelings about it either way. Those are my comments. I look forward to approving this, and I'm glad for the opportunity to be able to review it. Thanks.
Commissioner Lombardi?
Sure, I'll keep it short. I mean, I concur with most of the comments from my colleagues today. I think this is a wonderful and exciting project, and it's great that there's an opportunity for this space, and I think it's an interesting business model and very well suited to the site. And any concerns with noise, et cetera, in general, I feel like in this particular location is not too much of an issue. It's on the Sunset Strip. The street noise is already loud when you talk about any amplification of noise outdoors. And also the event venue being inside really doesn't present a lot of issues there. So I'm certainly prepared to approve this project. I don't have a strong opinion on whether anything should be coming back to us for review or not, but I concur with some of the other updates that would be a cleanup to the resolution and would be prepared to approve this.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Harris.
Thank you. I have nothing new to add except that as a huge fan of jazz, who's very sad to have seen a few clubs close in the last few years, I think this is exciting to have in the neighborhood. I do think this is a really good location for a use like this. It seems to be adequately surrounded by other businesses and by, as other commissioners have stated, a very loud public street. So, yeah, I would be inclined to approve as written with the modifications that were pointed out by Commissioner Hoopenganger.
Any opinion about the 6 month and 1 year review coming to the community development director or back to the commission?
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. I am inclined to leave that as going back to the director. I think that as the planning commission, we are going to have a lot of things to consider in the next 6 to 12 months. Yeah, I trust the community planning director to make the decision on that.
Great. I think everyone has spoken at this point. I agree with Commissioner Harris on that. I don't feel like everyone else. I don't feel strongly one way or the other, and I could vote either way. But on balance, for something like this, I think we could leave the review to the community development director, as proposed by staff. Other than that, I fully support the recommendation before us tonight. I think this is going to be a terrific restaurant, and I hope it's successful. I'm not sure how we resolve the issue about the 6 month and 1 year review. It looks like we're pretty divided on that. Anyone like to speak to that again?
Well, since I'm I guess I'm going to say I'll make the motion to approve staff's recommendation with the corrections we've discussed. I can live with it. I guess what my concern is just the public transparency. And if it goes to the director, then there's no real way for the public to know what's going on. So that was my only concern. And in fact, I would have actually, instead of saying 6 and 1 year, I would have said 3 and 6 months, because it's all about the early days and the shakedown. And I really appreciate that the applicant talked about the fact that they've done it before and there's an existing, facility out there. But we all know that thanks to Catch and EPLP and a few other things, that it's those early days that are problematic. And we don't know exactly how that sound's going to carry to the house immediately to the west in Beverly Hills. Yes, there's trees. Yes, there's ambient noise. But the proof is in the proverbial pudding, and that's my only concern. And, back to my questions about the delimiter, and, okay, there's a delimiter, but what's it set to? And so I can go either way. I'm always in favor of transparency. And so that would be why I would like, the reason to bring it back to Planning Commission is to give it transparency to the public. And, yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
add something? Regarding transparency, if this were to go back to a director's hearing, it would be the same noticing. Site posting would be posted on the site for 28 days, just like it was for Planning Commission. So it would be a duly noticed public hearing, just as it is Planning Commission for a director's
Okay,
hearing.
well, you just said an important word, hearing. You didn't, because
It's in 1116.
I'm looking at 1116, and it just says community director review. It doesn't say a hearing.
It says if additional conditions are deemed necessary, a director's hearing shall be scheduled at the operator's expense, including all public notice and
Right.
hearing fees.
And I do have a note for the commission maybe to consider. I think it sounds like if there's broad consensus, and we'll know once the motion is made, to keep the condition largely intact with respect to that initial part, that it will start at a community development director level review. I think one option for the commission would be in that last sentence that Commissioner Jones just read. If additional conditions are deemed necessary, the city could strike the word directors, so it could just read, if additional conditions are deemed necessary, a hearing shall be scheduled at the operator's expense, which could be based on the entitlement that might be violated and the specific condition at issue. So it preserves some flexibility, and it would still maintain that it starts at a CDD director level review.
I'm comfortable with that.
I guess,
I am too.
and I think that addresses the majority of it. The only problem is, and I'll speak to the lawyer in you, Mr. Rosen, is that speaks to only if the director finds that there's an issue. So that's back to, if they don't find an issue, there's no vehicle for the public to bring it forward, and that's my concern. Okay.
Commissioner Hoopen-Gardner, to Ms. Yelton's point, I think there is still some notice contemplated by a director level hearing, and I think it's probably a policy decision for the commission whether or not they're comfortable with the fact that it would still, as we're discussing, the possibility would be that it still stays with the CDD director to start, and then it could be elevated to a hearing after that time.
But that initial review wouldn't be noticed.
We can also suggest that, one of the things is that we do have code compliance process, so if there are
Sure.
complaints, our code can go and, cite a business. So that's one whole vehicle for anyone who is experiencing noise issues. That's kind of the main thing, right, the noise issues here. The other one is that we could amend the condition to say that the review is coming to the director. It's not a director's hearing, but, the way we brought the reviews to Planning Commission. But if there are issues, if we are receiving violations or any kind of complaints, then we schedule it to come to the Planning Commission at that stage. So we only come to Planning Commission if there is an actual issue.
If there's actual issue. I would say, I could even take it backwards, okay, and simply say, if the community director has reviewed it and found it not to be a problem, then just put it on consent and tell us that it was reviewed and there's not a problem. To me, that would become then public, and the public could see that a declaration has made that there's no problem, and then if they can say, well, wait a minute, yes, there is, then they have the opportunity to speak up. But that way, you don't have to even notice a hearing or anything, but it would be on our consent calendar, at the whatever 3/6 or whatever period, just a statement from the director that the review happened, it was all good, and God bless and go forth. Is that a thing?
If the commission wants to structure it that way, we can amend the condition. Sure.
And that way, it doesn't have to come to commission per se as an item for review, just, telling the public it's been reviewed and it's all good.
Any other commissioner would like to speak to this particular issue?
I mean, it sounds harmless enough and appropriate. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of additional work.
Shouldn't be. I mean, you got to do the review anyway. It's just a statement that the review was done and everything was in compliance. It should be a 2-sentence statement that would be disclosed to the public.
Can I clarify one thing with staff? Because earlier on, you said that when it goes to the director, it is a public notice, 28 days, but then later you said that it wasn't.
Only if there's a director's hearing. So the point is,
Right.
if the director,
Got it.
so the director has 2 choices. It's all good, in which case the review is done and it goes away and nobody hears about it. If the director says there's a problem, then it goes to hearing, which I'm fine with, okay? But it's the all good and it goes away, but nobody knows that that review has happened and it went away, even though they may think that there is something to discuss. That's my only concern.
I think my only concern about this is setting the precedent of having this type of thing happen on everything, right? Seems like this should be something that should be used sparingly, and I'm not sure if this project is really one that
Well, we did it on,
would warrant that.
the standard, we made those reviews to come back to the planning commission.
Yeah, but the standard
It
was.
was a much bigger, it's 400 people and it's outside. And I get
Yeah, I
that.
mean, it was a new, like an
Yeah.
entirely new use. I mean, I think that's why I just, again, I'm not opposed to there being public input and transparency, but I also want to make sure I'm giving expertise to the people who are paid to have the expertise, which is staff. And I would even be okay with just hearing an update from the director during the director's report.
If that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. I'm just that it is disclosed to the public. That's the thing I'd like to hear.
Yeah, I'd like to concur with Commissioner Jones. I think it does seem appropriate to have it come up in the director's report. I think there is probably a slight difference between the director's report and the consent calendar, if I'm not mistaken, because the director's report, it's not
just verbal.
enumerated what is going to be said, so members of the public might not know that it's going to be delivered, which I guess doesn't really address your concern with members of the public being given the opportunity to speak up. Yeah, it doesn't seem like I mean, so one thing of clarification that I think is probably central to the discussion, it was said earlier that there was found that there would be no noise impacts to residential properties. That was studied? I'm assuming that there was like at least some kind of noise modeling done at the distance with how was that determination reached? I mean, it would be a simple enough model, right? Because it's just the attenuation of noise over a particular distance with whatever barriers are between the establishment and the recipient, right?
Well, but noise studies do take time and money, and I don't want to have the, applicant incur that cost, and I don't think we need to. The question is there a problem? Is it disturbing the neighbors or not? And like I said, it's just the early days while things get shaken down. You've got a new manager, new staff, somebody decides to tweak the sound because they want to tweak the sound, just what's going on. And that's the only concern I have. I think this is a great idea, and I know it's going to be a success. I just want to set it up for success and to make sure that the community has their input. That's my only concern. So, if my colleagues, totally disagree, then that's great. But I just would like some transparency, that's all.
Anyone else want to speak to this?
I guess I'm trying to think back to things all the way, like when we did Barry's, there was stuff that came back to the commission, but it went on consent.
Mm-hmm. That was my initial thought, was just come to consent, drop it on consent.
I'm okay with consent.
I guess I'm curious if staff has any additional thoughts now that they've heard more from us. Or if this seems easy enough, or if this is complicating things.
If the commission decides to bring it back on consent, we'll just do that. If the commission decides that the director is receiving information at 3 and 6 months, we can change the timing on that. And if there is an issue, and we can report that as director's report if you want, or if you want us to put that as consent item, director's finding, we can do that as well. So whatever the decision, whatever works for the commission.
I like
I
that
say
idea. I
three
mean,
and
we
six
did it for
consent.
berries. You know, just bring it to consent. I would amend it to 3 and 6 months. A
Yeah.
year, I think is just a waste of time and money.
Yeah.
Just 3 and 6 months and put it on consent and we're done. That's all.
Agree.
I'm on board with that as well.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner Hoopengarner, you were making the motion.
Okie dokie. Let's rock and roll. So fixes, 2.2, lose amplified music out of the last sentence. Number 1. Number 2, changing residential to commercial.
And that is condition 2.3, Commissioner Hoopengarner?
Yeah, 2.3, sorry. 8.3, I just personally want that employees struck. Just
Can we read another condition, a similar condition into the record for 8.3? So strike what's there now and replace it with construction workers shall not park on any street within West Hollywood and shall utilize off-street parking secured by the contractor until the on-site parking is completed and able to be used.
Perfect. Same language we use on every
Sounds good.
resolution. Perfect. Thank you. 10.3, you're striking the last sentence entirely. There shall be no amplified sound or music. 11.10, did we come up with an answer as to what that should be?
I can give it a try for the commission's consideration. There's still some policy considerations in what I'm about to read for the commission's deliberation. It's just based on sort of what I've heard from the dais. So pursuant to West Hollywood Municipal Code Section
No, 11.10, on-site security.
My apologies. I was jumping ahead to 11.16.
Yes. Did we determine it's supposed to be on-site? Mr. Lehman, does he?
On-site security.
The operator of their business shall use their on-site personnel to ensure that its use of the outdoor area of alcohol service in no way interferes with the sidewalk users, et cetera, et cetera. Right now it says on-security, which has no meaning. So. Okay, just so get rid of the on. The operator of the business shall use their security personnel.
It looks to me like it was supposed to say on-site because there's a hyphen there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so. it's
And the
probably
next
on-site
item below
security.
says on-site, so, or down below.
If that's the commission's,
Okay, let's make it on-site.
That's
so it's
fine.
very clear that it's on-site. Just,
That
I think so it was tend to be all along. Okay. Now, Mr. Rosen, you can speed ahead to 11.16.
all right. So again, I think there are some policy considerations still from the commission, but this is sort of what I've heard from the dais. The bulk of the condition remains the same. Pursuant to West Hollywood Municipal Code Section 1948-030, the Community Development Director shall review the permit at the 3-month and 6 months after commencement of operations, or at any time if there are verifiable complaints, to determine whether corrective conditions need to be imposed to minimize any major verified disturbances to nearby properties, in which case the results of the director's review will be included on the Planning Commission's consent calendar. That's a consideration I have for the commission just based on the discussion. So the CDD director's review is in part to determine whether there are corrective actions necessary. So if there were, the language I just read into the record would mean those came back on the Planning Commission's consent calendar.
My only concern with that is that in which case implies that the return to consent is only if there's a problem.
Correct. That's for the commission's
so-
consideration.
Yeah, no, the discussion here was, it will come to us on consent what the director's decision was. Period.
Okay, if that is the commission's desired intent, it would read, and I'm just going to back up to the existing condition a little bit, to minimize any major verified disturbances to nearby properties, comma, the results of the director's review will be included on the Planning Commission's consent calendar. And I'd like to make one more modification for the commission's consideration in the next sentence. If additional conditions are deemed necessary, a hearing, deleting the word directors, a hearing shall be scheduled at the operator's expense, just to preserve flexibility.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues for making that happen.
Everybody okay with that?
That is my motion. Commissioner Caballero, are you still on board?
Yes.
Awesome.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Shall we go to the vote?
And the motion passes with 6 ayes, noting Commissioner Solomon absent on this vote. We do have an appeal process. Resolution number PC 251620, the Planning Commission just approved for the property located at 9255 Sunset Boulevard, memorializes the Commission's final action on this matter. This action is subject to appeal to the City Council. Appeals must be submitted within 10 calendar days from this date to the City Clerk's office. Appeals must be in writing and accompanied by the required fees. The City Clerk's office can provide appeal forms and information about waiver of fees. The appeal deadline is Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 5 p.m.
Great, thank you so much. We have another public hearing, but I have a request for a 5-minute break.
And I need to recuse myself.
But-
So I need to recuse myself from item 10C because I've worked on Sunset Billboard projects in the past, part of phase 1. So I will be exiting the building.
Thank you, Commissioner Caballero. Have a good evening. And we are on a 5-minute break. Started, folks.
I know. Rambo, right around the Manhattan Bridge over there. It is Rambo. Well, we have Geminis, right?
Mr. Gillig, are we ready to restart?
Sorry, just hold it. Anyway, it is called Rambo.
Okay, folks, we're back from our break. We're moving on to our third public hearing of the night. This is item 10A, Billboard Policy Amendments in CEQA Analysis. We'll be holding a public hearing to review minor amendments to Chapter 8 of the Sunset Specific Plan, Sunset Boulevard Off-Site Signage Policy. Do we have a staff report?
We do. Good evening. Jennifer Davis, Senior Contract Planner for the City of West Hollywood. Chair and fellow commissioners, happy to be here in person this evening. Okay. Tonight we are looking at amendments to the Sunset Boulevard off-site signage policy. That is Chapter 8 of the Sunset Specific Plan. Tonight the Commission is to review the proposed amendments and also the CEQA analysis that goes along with those amendments, and then make a recommendation to the City Council. I just want to step back a minute because this has been a long and winding road, so I wanted to put it into context a bit. So Chapter 8 of the Sunset Specific Plan is entitled Billboards and Arts Advertising, and that was adopted in 1996. Then in 2019, the city adopted the Sunset Boulevard off-site signage policy, which we lovingly called the Billboard Policy. And that replaced Chapter 8 of the specific plan. This policy is now the guiding document for all off-site signage and arts on Sunset Strip. The proposed amendments before you focus mostly on lighting and lighting of the billboards. The amendments clarify and strengthen various light and glare requirements. There are amendments proposed in 3 sections of the policy. Section 5, which is lighting and operations. Section 6, which is architectural lighting. Section 9, which is definitions. Also, the CEQA analysis is a large part of your packet, and I just want to sort of put it into context as well. The negative declaration that was prepared for the billboard policy in 2019 was the CEQA analysis for that policy. Then in 2021, we did an addendum to that negative dec for the round 1 projects. Those were the first set of projects, billboard projects. Now we are looking at a second, third addendum to the negative dec for policy amendments, and that's what you're reviewing tonight. That addendum, just in a nutshell, demonstrated that no new significant environmental impacts would occur with these proposed amendments. The CEQA analysis contains, most importantly, a lighting study. The original lighting study was done as part of the policy adoption in 2019, and what came from the lighting study was used to create the standards for the original billboard policy. Now we're updating that lighting standard, and we're using the updated information from the lighting study to update standards in the policy. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Francis Cray of FKA Lighting. They are the ones that did the original lighting study and are doing the current study.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Francis Cray. I'm the
President, owner of Francis Crane Associates, Inc. As Jennifer mentioned, in 2019, we conducted an initial study which analyzed the new proposed billboards that would be converted to digital displays. And those signs that were analyzed at that time were approximately 1,000 square feet. They were analyzed with a maximum luminance of 300 candelas per meter squared. And they were evaluated based upon maximum light trespass at residential properties of 1.4 foot candles, which at that time translated to a distance of about 250 feet from each of the billboards. Our more recent study in 2025 evaluates the round 1, round 1.5, and round 2 sign proposals. And those signs vary in area from 360 to 6,156 square feet. So substantially larger than the area that we analyzed in 2019. And in addition, there are various locations that are less than 250 feet from residentially zoned properties. The method that we use for the study, both in 2019 and in 2025, looked at the most concentrated, most dense alignment of the signs along Sunset Boulevard. We went in the field and measured the existing lighting conditions, and then we conduct a series of calculations that evaluate the sign luminance to determine if there's a source of new glare. And we evaluate the light from the sign at residential properties to determine if there's a source of light trespass or illuminance. Based upon that, we developed recommendations to reduce the light trespass. With regard to the existing conditions, we measured existing luminance and illuminance at 18 properties along Sunset in this most concentrated area. We measured the illuminance, and it varied from 0.15 to 3.55 foot candles. We measured the average luminance, or the sign intensity, and also the intensity of street lights and other illuminated surfaces, and that varied from 49 to 1,008 candelas per meter squared. So based upon those conditions, the evaluation of the existing lighting along Sunset is described as being a high brightness zone. Typical for entertainment district is what we're accustomed to. And of course, as you know, the intensity decreases rapidly as you move either north or south from Sunset Boulevard. The findings of our study were that the glare from the signs at 300 candelas per meter squared was actually low contrast, so a low glare condition at all 24 of the signs that we evaluated. So the brightness is not the issue. On the other hand, with regard to light trespass, we found that 2 of the 24 locations exceeded the policy limit of 1.4 foot candles at the adjacent or nearest residential properties. And there were factors associated with those 2 locations where we could see why they were exceeding the current policy. First of all, the signs were larger than 1,000 square feet, or in addition, they were adjacent to or very close to a residential zone property. One point I glossed over originally in the 2019 study, one of the basic assumptions was that the signs would be oriented toward Sunset Boulevard and parallel to Sunset Boulevard. In fact, many of the proposals in the more recent round 1.5 and 2 design proposals are perpendicular to Sunset Boulevard. So therefore, we came up with recommendations to address those conditions that exceeded the threshold that we had defined. So the first one is to reduce the sign luminance relative to the increase in area greater than 1,000 square feet. The studies were all based initially on that 1,000 square foot sign area. If the sign is substantially greater than that, then we're recommending that the brightness of the sign would be reduced proportionately. Secondly, that the sign orientation and its relative distance to the adjacent residential properties should be limited and adjusted such that it would reduce the direct light to that adjacent property. So those two recommendations, if they're implemented, prevent the signs from creating excessive light trespass, and we tested that and confirmed it in a follow-up to the study. And just as an illustration, this was one of the conditions where we tested at Sunset and San Vicente, where we have a concentration of signs, several of which were oriented, as you can see in the illustration, directly south towards the residential properties to the south, or perpendicular to the properties to the north and adjacent to those residential properties at the boundary of the specific plan. This is one of the examples that had a sign facing south. And another condition where the sign at 8873 abuts a residential property to the north.
Francis will be here for further questions after my presentation. So in addition to the CEQA analysis, as we have moved through this process and as we have proposed amendments, we have heard from the public concerns about driver distraction from the full motion billboards. So we asked Fair and Peers to conduct a study studying those effects on traffic safety and collision rates. Fair and Peers, this will be their fourth study on billboards and drivers' distraction. They're very well versed in this topic, and they are going to present a few slides here for us.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Danielle Caparas with Fair and Peers, here to present an overview of the traffic safety study that we conducted for the city of West Hollywood. So Sunset Boulevard is a vibrant hub that attracts entertainment and nightlife, and the increasing presence of billboards over the years has created a visual environment that has raised concerns from community members in terms of traffic roadway safety. Fair and Peers has conducted previous studies for the city in the years 2014, 2017, and 2023, and continued to provide an updated understanding of billboards and how they relate to traffic roadway safety as new research and new technology continues to evolve. As Jennifer mentioned, the purpose of this study was to answer the question, what are the effects of full motion billboards on driver distraction and roadway safety? Full motion billboards, as defined in this study, are digital electronic billboards that have a dynamic display of moving images, messages, and videos. Our study comprised of three main parts. So first, we conducted a literature review that focused on the topic of driver distraction and examined how the collective effects of billboards compare to other common distraction factors. Next, we conducted a comparative collision analysis. We looked at a 10-year data period of collision data on Sunset Boulevard and compared that to 3 similar corridors in Los Angeles County, namely Beverly Boulevard, Ventura Boulevard, and Colorado Boulevard, to determine if the increased billboard presence on Sunset leads to an increased number of collisions. These 3 comparison corridors are physically and functionally similar to Sunset in terms of intersection spacing, land use development, and lane configuration. Lastly, we also conducted several field visits to the corridor, during which we observed the corridor during both daytime and nighttime conditions to see how traffic and roadway conditions vary throughout the day, and we provided suggestions to the city in order to improve overall traffic safety. The findings from the literature review showed that there are numerous factors that contribute to driver distraction, and the ways in which they interact with each other are complex, meaning that it's difficult to isolate or pinpoint one main contributing factor to driver distraction. There are two categories of distraction factors. There's external distraction factors, which include billboards or pedestrians walking in the sidewalk or the crosswalk or traffic control devices. And then there are also internal distraction factors, such as those within the driver's control or inside the vehicle. And the research showed that by far internal distraction factors have the highest influence on driver performance and contribute the most to driver distraction. So the extent to which external distraction factors influence driver performance is entirely dependent on what internal factors are already present inside the vehicle. Lastly, the literature review showed that any distraction that is caused by billboards is related to its specific characteristics and placement, meaning that billboards themselves are not a uniform risk factor, and it is dependent on its specific characteristics such as the dwell time or the luminance of the billboard, as well as its placement in relation to important traffic control devices. Next, we have the findings of the comparative collision analysis. So the comparative collision analysis showed that the total number of collisions and the severity of crashes along Sunset is within range of the other comparison corridors. So despite the increased presence of billboards along Sunset, there is no observed increase of collisions. Next, Sunset also has the lowest number of fatalities and injury crashes compared to the other corridors. So despite an increased billboard presence, the studies show that Sunset does not have more injurious or more fatal crashes. Lastly, we looked at a 10-year time period of collision data from 2015 to 2024, and in the year 2022, when full motion billboards first became operational, there was no observable spike in crashes, which would indicate that full motion billboards led to an increased number of crashes, but that observation was not found. Lastly, from our field observations, we noted the following general roadway conditions along Sunset and made corresponding traffic safety suggestions. So there's a high density of signage along Sunset Boulevard, and at intersections where there are many different conflicts that drivers have to navigate, we recommend updating the signals to have yellow reflective backplates so that drivers it's like more visible to drivers and they'll be more attentive and adhere to the signal indications. Next, we also noticed that making left turns out of major driveways and at skewed intersections are difficult to make, so there are several intersections where we recommend implementing left turn restrictions. Next, at major intersections, we noticed that there are long pedestrian crossing distances and short walk times, so we made the suggestion to implement features such as quick build curb extensions to shorten the crossing distance, as well as giving pedestrians more pedestrian walk time so that there's adequate time to safely cross the roadway. And lastly, we noticed that there were a couple locations where there are currently crosswalks across Sunset Boulevard that are currently unsignalized, and we recommend implementing some sort of pedestrian signal to alert drivers that there are pedestrians within the roadway. Overall, and in conclusion, the study showed that there is no causal link between billboards and increased number of collisions on Sunset Boulevard, as shown by the literature review and the comparative collision analysis. We outlined different traffic safety suggestions throughout the report in an attempt to improve overall roadway safety with an emphasis on increasing driver attentiveness with the understanding that there are numerous factors within the roadway that contribute to driver distraction.
I just want to note for the commission that the Transportation Commission last night reviewed this traffic study and the suggestions for improvements along Sunset, and it was well received, and you have that report was sent to you by the secretary. And another additional study was the wildlife analysis study, and City Council specifically requested this to study any impacts that the billboards would have on the wildlife north of Sunset. So this study focused on artificial light at night, and it did find or conclude that while new billboards will increase ambient nighttime light, existing light already exceeds full moon conditions in the area north of Sunset. When the billboard light reaches the nearest habitat area, it will be substantially diminished due to distance, as Francis said earlier. The light will generally be reduced to an average light that would fall at or below that of a bright full moon. So we also have the senior biologist from DUDAC on Zoom if there were any questions on this study when Commission asked questions. Again, I'm going to start into the amendments and sort of just highlight the most important, most impactful amendments. First one is to the lighting and operations section, and these next two slides are based on the FKA lighting study and their recommendations for reducing light trespass. So the first one is, as was stated earlier, this is the table which actually says if your sign face increases in size, your candelas must lower accordingly, correlative. So that's that was this amendment, and then the second one, the sort of the sister amendment to that, is about the distance from and the angle from residentially zoned property lines. So this is a little difficult to read, but at the top you'll see a budding residentially zoned property line, that's the dotted line, and the bars are billboards, and there's an orange line along the billboard which would indicate the sign face. So basically, the more perpendicular the billboard is to the residential property line, the further away from the residential property line it needs to be. So the more parallel to the residential property line, the closer it can be to that residentially zoned property. And then the second chart on this slide describes that, the distance from and the angle from and how they relate to each other. The next section we propose to amend is the architectural lighting section. Principally, what we tried to do here is to clarify that architectural lighting is separate and distinct from billboard lighting. That architectural lighting is to highlight the building surfaces, not to project outward. And to clarify that architectural lighting cannot generate revenue as the billboard lighting would. Section 9 is definitions, and there are basically 4 of them. We redefine the definition of architectural lighting to try to make it clearer in discerning what is sign face and what is architectural lighting. There's a new definition of illuminance and a graphic to sort of illustrate that. And there's a refined definition of luminance with a corresponding graphic as well. In addition, there's a new definition that is off-site advertising sign, which is in there to encompass all the various off-site signage. With that, staff recommends adopting Resolution 2516-19, which recommends to the City Council approving the proposed amendments and adopting the addendum to the 2019 negative declaration. I, of course, am available for questions, as is all of the consultants here tonight and on Zoom.
Great, thank you so much for the staff report. This is not a matter for which we have an applicant. The city is an applicant of sorts. Before we get to commissioner questions of staff, I think we should see if there are any commissioner disclosures. Commissioner Hoopengard?
Just that we should disclose to the public that there is that additional memorandum from the staff that should be online, David, for them to download, that was sent to us late today. So
Great.
We should be telling them that they can go get that.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. Any disclosures of public conversations?
Yes, I spoke with a member of the public about items contained in the staff report.
Great, thank you so much. Anything else?
Yeah, I talked to someone in the community about items contained in the staff report on this item. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? I think before we go to questions of staff and then on to deliberations, I think it would be helpful to go straight to public comments this time. Mr. Gillig, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We have no public comment on Zoom. We do have one public speaker here in council chambers. That would be Brandon. Brandon, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair. Brandon Zavala with the Afriot Consulting Group and a resident of the beautiful city of Los Angeles. Our firm represents multiple billboard operators, property owners with billboards on the Sunset Strip, and property owners along Sunset who do not own billboards. I'm here in support of item 10A because these updates are good for the Sunset Arts and Advertising Program, good for the local community, and good for ensuring that the program continues to work as intended. The updates make it clear as to how signage must be oriented, total brightness based on sign area, other operational cleanups for billboards, and how issues can be addressed as they arise. This keeps the Strip vibrant while respecting people who live nearby. Equally important, approving this item moves forward the environmental work that so many pending projects are waiting on. Advancing the environmental analysis lets rounds 1.5 and round 2 proceed to commission hearings and advance projects that the City Council is looking forward to considering. Finally, and most importantly, at least in my view, I do want to take an opportunity to thank staff, Jennifer Alkire, Nick Marisich, and particularly the incomparable Jennifer Davis for their collaborative process and working closely with all stakeholders, myself included, to get these details right. Thank you for your time and appreciate your consideration. This is an incredible program and the city is leading the way, and they are continuing to do that with this item that you are looking at this evening. Thank you all.
Thank you. And Chair, that is our last public speaker for this item.
Great, thank you so much for your public comment. I will close the public comment portion of this hearing. And now let's go to commissioner questions of staff. Who would like to begin? Commissioner
Is
Lombardi.
everyone staring over here? Someone else go first, please. Do you want me? I can go first if you guys would like me to.
If you'd like.
Okay, fine. I'll dive into it. I'm still kind of sorting my notes here based on the staff report, but actually, I think it would be helpful maybe if I just ask some questions to get into some more detail about the lighting study for a minute, because that's more of the overarching topic. If FKA could be available for that. I guess one of the first questions I have is essentially there's just a few changes that are happening to the zone text as part of what we're hearing today. And one of the key factors is this chart with luminance values relative to sign area. I was just trying to understand how you determined or came to those numbers, what that's based upon, or how you came to those ratios, and how you feel that those are appropriate or would address concerns.
Well, on a very high level, or simplistic view of it, the original baseline was studied at 1,000 square feet. And based upon that 1,000 square feet times 300 candelas per meter squared, we found that that would not create an impact for properties that were within 250 feet. So if you double the size of the sign, then that distance goes from 250 feet to 500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And if you quadruple it, it goes to 1,000 feet. And so if you take 1,000 feet from any given sign, you encompass a whole series of residential properties that, you know, under the original analysis, we said there would be no impact. So the logic is to maintain basically the 250-foot boundary. So therefore, if you multiply the sign area by 4 times the baseline, you have a commensurate reduction of luminance.
Okay, I see. So you worked backwards that way.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
I guess another question that I've been trying to wrap my head around is there's all of the sort of detail of the report and the individual scenarios, but then going back to the overall topic of the cumulative effect of what is occurring with the addition of the signs and more in the future. I guess my question is, it seems if we're talking about at least light trespass or illuminance, that there's this idea that a sign may comply, but then when you have overlapping signs, you have an issue where there's an intensification in that area. So in an individual basis, it may comply, but when if there were a scenario of 3 or 4 signs on top of each other, then you may have an issue. But that's a more localized issue. It's really in the immediate vicinity. So that can kind of be grasped in the context of what's happening in that immediate area. And if there's a residence or something that may have a view into the area or may have light spill, that's an issue. But one thing that I think is important that was noted somewhere in the various reports is the idea that illuminance is not really, distance isn't really a factor there, right? Like it's still, regardless of the distance, you still have that recording or reading, and that's a potential issue. So I guess what I'm wondering is when you have more of these things around each other, what does that mean to what's happening? And how do you feel like we've addressed it, or this addresses it, I should say, when we talk about more of these signs and that we're talking about long views or more bright things that, you could be in a tower, right, and you look down, or you have that light in your room. You're not going to have a foot candle of 1.4, but you're going to have a disruption.
So there's, I guess, multiple issues in that question. I would just say, first of all, from the precedent of other lighting policies, lighting regulations, those established by the Illuminating Engineering Society, those established by CalGreen, those established by other municipalities, the test for illuminance is always the contribution of that particular property or that particular sign above ambient. So it is not, there is no cumulative limit established by code anywhere in the United States. It doesn't say that once you've exceeded 3 foot candles, nobody can produce any more light, right? So the standard is above ambient per property or per sign, and that's the way it's regulated consistently throughout the country. There are other factors here in terms of the density of signs. I think it's what you're sort of trying to speculate on is, well, what happens when I have 4 signs, 4 adjacent properties, and they're all pointed at one point, or one property, right?
Yeah, that was one example.
So in a in a roundabout way, that's what we're trying to achieve with the orientation of the signs. So what we're saying is that there is some additive effect of sign illuminance to the adjacent properties, but if it's directed towards other commercial use properties or directed towards Sunset Boulevard per se, then that doesn't present an impact. If the signs are oriented towards residential use, then you could have both an illuminance light trespass impact, and you could have a glare impact or a increased visual distraction impact to those people that are seeing the sign out of their window. So that's part of the recommendation, is to facilitate or regulate the orientation of the signs so that they are either pointing towards Sunset from the north right-of-way to the south, or from the south right-of-way to the north. The other piece I would just say is that the measured existing conditions are, within the context of the state of California, we do these studies and these sort of measurements in many different municipalities. The measured illuminance values along Sunset Boulevard are among the highest in the region and in the state. And I think that's coincident with the use. In other words, this is an entertainment, it has been an entertainment district since we first started working in the city of West Hollywood in the 1990s. So the ambient light has always been higher here, and so I think that's part of the existing context. And the signs don't necessarily change that per se. What we're trying to do is keep it within a consistent level.
Okay, I think I understand, and I have some things that may be more for discussion later, but it's interesting because it's very bright immediately within the area, but we have it drops off very quickly, right? And so I think that's one distinction that's very different than, for instance, like Times Square, where you're kind of in a canal and it's all contained within there with these tall vertical surfaces, which are all the towers that they're around. I think one of the main things that we've seen up here from, when people come to speak, public comment, or emails that we receive is, in particular, uphill, looking down at those signs that are facing up toward the hill. So I guess that's the context that I'm kind of looking at. What does it mean with X number of things and how bright they are? So I guess that helps a little bit for understanding. The other question that I have that relates to that, though, is I didn't see it in the report, but did you consider reflection onto other buildings, and are you aware of some of those issues that have popped up on projects over the years?
We did not analyze it in this study, but we have analyzed it in other specific sign studies within the city. And I would just generally say that if we start with a sign that's at 300 candelas per meter squared, and we say that it is low contrast or medium contrast to the context, the reflected image is some percentage less than 300 candelas per meter squared. So it cannot be brighter than the sign, right? But the law of physics is that light from the sign reaches that other surface. Some of it is reflected, some of it is diffused, some of it is absorbed. The reflected image is never 100% of the source image. So therefore, the luminance of the reflected image must be lower than 300 candelas per meter squared, the maximum permitted under the policy. So therefore, the reflected image is also compliant with the policy.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a way to make this a question at the moment, but obviously we've seen some of these concerns pop up, and I guess what's happening is you have a sign that's facing south, but perhaps unexpectedly, people are seeing the sign that are uphill, or the inverse could happen too.
Right.
That they weren't expecting, right? So it catches them off guard. In some cases, I think the signs were just operating too high, and that's been addressed. But I guess my question would be, does something need to be considered in the context of when a structure is being built, or if we see a facade remodel, because those have happened over the years? It's something we can all try to think about, but is there something there that, because we've seen these concerns, should be addressed in some capacity? Or does that need to be maybe it's a question for staff to look at further, that is a second part of this, as the sunset signage policy and the entire district, and how that's handled in the context of there being more illuminated signs that have more motion in them than in the past? So I guess I asked a question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not sure I have an quick answer.
Thank you. There was a simple thing that I wanted to ask as well. You had some nice diagrams in your report that I see have worked their way into the actual resolution, which would then go into the zone text, including some that show luminance and luminance. Or are those from the IES handbook?
They're derived from the IES handbook. We recreated them.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Just looking at the credits as they're noted in the zone text, it's crediting FKA. So, I mean, if you created the images, great. I just want to make sure that it's clear if someone's trying to go to the source, where to go.
Yeah.
And I had one, I think this is my last question. I had a specific question. It was around, I don't know if I have the exact page number, but there was a note about a reference to one location, let me get the viewpoints up, that had one sign that was creating an issue with illuminance, but then later on another paragraph, I think, said that there were two positions that were causing an issue. Does that ring a bell? Let me see if I can pull this up and get more specific here.
I believe those are the two signs that we highlighted in the presentation.
N1, VP N1A and VP N2A?
Yeah, so there were vertical planes where we calculated the illuminance at the residential property line. So at that particular sign, there's actually two adjacent residential properties. Mm-hmm. So there's one sign, but it's abutting two different residential surfaces, if you will. So it's one sign creating an impact in two different locations.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay,
yeah.
I understand now.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it for lighting specific questions. I have a few others. Some of them are more about the actual text. This may be more of a question for staff. In particular, there's a definition of architectural lighting that looked confusing to me. I guess I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. In particular, it's defining architectural lighting, and then it says something about feature lighting later.
Yeah, I think it says something about accent lighting.
Accent lighting, yes, thank you.
Right, and perhaps we tried to do too much with that definition, and as I thought about it, I think the most efficient thing to do is to remove that last sentence regarding accent lighting, because the term accent lighting does not show up anywhere else in the policy. So to define it separately would not be appropriate, but we could take that sentence out and the definition of architectural lighting would still stand.
Okay. And then I just want to understand a little bit about, just to make sure I'm following, essentially all of these projects that exist in round 1 and round 1.5 and 2 are considered deemed complete for the majority of them if they're moving forward, right?
All current billboard applications have been deemed complete.
Okay, and there are some that have not been.
Well, we don't have
complete.
we don't have any new applications, but
Okay.
all of the ones we have been deemed complete.
And because we talk about that a lot up here with projects, when is it deemed complete and what applies, how does this relate to a project when it moves forward and the Planning Commission is hearing it?
How do
Relative
the
to a sign,
the
yeah,
proposed amendments?
Mhm.
Right. So as planners, we try to find the sort of best practice for any project, and that doesn't, we can draw from all different sources. In this case, each billboard project is negotiated with a development agreement, and we can go a little bit beyond in our requirements for things. And so we have been already implementing these standards for applications that are in the process. We say you will have to have candelas reduced if you have a larger sign than 1,000 square feet. So in effect, we use it as guidance, and it would be in conditions of approval that you see henceforth.
Okay. So are you saying that it may be possible to treat it in the same way as when we talk about the operator lettering and the size of that? Because I know that's
Right.
something that's not currently in the code, but we've been holding to 8 inches or
And some of
something like
that comes as the commission is reviewing something and they have a specific concern, and so we try to incorporate that into the next project as well, sort of an iterative process.
Okay. I guess it's a question, I guess I'm questioning the diagram with the orientation of the sign and what that means to adjacent residential properties. The diagrams, now that I've looked at them a second time, I'm understanding it more. I think what I'm seeing that maybe is confusing is the yellow or orange. It may be hard to read and may be not readable at all or distinguishable at all if someone were to print in black and white for people that still print.
Right.
But perhaps it would be possible to add text or something
Yeah,
to show the sign face side.
Yeah, we could improve the diagrams for more legibility.
Okay. I'll leave it at that. I might have a couple of other questions, but a lot of them more relate to the actual resolution. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Hubengar.
Okay, actually, to continue on with Commissioner Lombardi's questions on the lighting, can we look at page 7 of the resolution? Jennifer, if you could bring the figure up on the screen, it might help everybody.
Yes, David, can I share my screen?
It includes Table 2 and Figure 2, which, by the way, for administrative purposes, Figure 2, the name is missing.
It's on the next page.
Ah. Nothing like old word rap.
What page did
7.
you? 7?
There we go.
Mhm.
Scroll. Okay, so that table, first of all, I think we need to, I'm assuming that means minimum setback in feet, because the table's
Yes.
not.
Yes, thank you for that.
That's a little oopsie. Okay, so my question is, I guess for our lighting expert, to explain the 90 degrees. So I understand what you're doing. You know, the closer you are to the lot line, the more it has to be directed away from the residential property. But then when you get to the 90 degree, you're now pushing that light back to the residence. And so, you know, was it ever considered to say it has to stop at 80 degrees or 85 degrees or something like that?
We actually tested those orientations, and two things to consider here: that when we talk about a digital display, it doesn't actually emit light at 0 degrees. So in any of this digital media, the sign is actually has no light from 0 to approximately 15 degrees. So inherent to the digital technology, there is kind of a 15-degree buffer, if you will, from that perpendicular condition.
So you're saying working from the 90-degree mark back,
Well, if
there
you were
is
to-
no
if-
impact?
If, more or less, the signs emit light, I believe it's 165 degrees of 180 degrees.
Okay.
All right? So there's no light from 0 to, actually it's 7.5 degrees. I said 15, it's 7.5 degrees. So that's part
So
of.
if you're looking at a signed surface, you're saying that 7.5 degrees this way, there's no light emission, and 7.5 degrees that way, there's no light emission?
Correct, correct.
I see. Okay.
So in testing the signs, and we did this test in our computer simulations and with our field testing, we determined that we could accept the sign in this configuration, and the light from the sign that would reach the residential property that would be perpendicular to the sign would not exceed the threshold. So it's not 0, it's the policy limit, which is 1.4 foot candles.
And so what about the sign, the residential property, if you were to take it over to the next lot, you know, if I were to take this diagram and dotted line, you know, keep drawing it to the right and put another house there, exactly.
Well,
Thank
then
you,
it
Jennifer.
wouldn't, then that, if the property line turns 90 degrees, then this rule would apply to that property line as well, and it would have to be essentially 45 degrees to both properties. You know what I'm saying? If the property line continues to the right and then turns 90 degrees parallel to the sign face, the sign would have to orient 45 degrees the other direction.
I'm not sure what you're saying, but it's turning 90 degrees.
Well, this diagram is for the adjacent property line that is at the top of the page. It's the dot.
Which for
black.
purposes of this discussion, let's assume that's north, because that's where the vast majority of our residential property is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's just say the next property turns slightly to the south. It's not parallel to that line any longer. It's now turning to the south. Okay?
Okay.
This diagram would say, well,
Then the angle has to back off.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But if it stays at the same distance,
Right.
what applies?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that at that distance from the property line, as you go farther out from the sign, the light is going to degrade by distance. So the 1.4 foot candles threshold, the worst case condition is, let's say, at 20 degrees or 25 degrees to the sign face. That's what we tested and found to be the worst case condition.
Okay. All right. Jennifer, on page 8, this the sign control and transitions, I'm really confused. You got, you know, an 8-second refresh, but then a 1-second refresh. What's the difference?
The 8-second is the rotation of the image, of the advertising image. And then the 1 second, let me just make sure I'm looking at this, is the fade rate. How fast can something fade from one to another? In other words, you don't want something moving quickly.
Correct.
And that's what this is attempting to stop.
So what we're saying is that if I have in ad 1 is Gucci and ad 2 is Apple, that they can't change more quickly than 8 seconds?
This is hard to explain.
But they can...
If the refresh rate is 8 seconds, like you can change from one Gucci bag to one Gucci hat.
Right.
In 8 seconds.
Okay.
But you can't change, you can't fade, you can't just blink on and off. You have
Right.
to, yeah. From either one of those two, or from internally, if you just are focused on the, you know, the Gucci bag, and
Sorry,
you want
Gucci.
I'm sorry. The Hoopengardner bag. You can't move quickly from those to another bag image.
Okay, so that's the 8 second applies to that.
Less than 8 seconds. In less than 8 seconds.
Correct.
So you don't
okay.
want flashing images.
Right.
So the image has to stay there for at least 8 seconds. It can stay longer, but it can't change again in less than 8 seconds.
Okay.
And the time between that image and the next image cannot be less than 1 second. So it has to fade from image to image over a second. It can.
Once it starts to change.
Right. It could take longer, but it
Okay,
can't go
so
faster.
I've got bag A and bag B. Bag A has to sit there for at least 8 seconds. Bag B has to sit there for at least 8 seconds. Now the transition from A to B must take at least 1 second.
Yes.
Now I understand.
Yes.
Maybe we can make the words say that?
That would be great. These amendments are sort of written by committee, so I invite more committee members to make it better.
The more you can paint a picture
Yes,
in
I
a
agree.
reader's mind,
Yes.
I think that makes it easier and less open to interpretation.
Yes.
So that really helps. Thank you. I don't know what you can do to the words to make it better, but okay. Skipping on to page 9, E, audio. On-site sound shall be allowed only during special events. Am I correct in my assumption that those special events would only occur as part of a special event permit?
Correct.
Okay. I don't like to assume. Okay. Definitions number 9, we're back to our Director of Planning and Development Services, which I think needs to be Director of Community Development.
Excuse me, are you on monitoring? Which one?
I'm in definitions.
Oh, definitions.
I'm sorry, it's section 9, page 12, my
Okay,
bad.
okay.
It's just this is the old director that we had to go clean up a billion times in different places. It's still here. It should be the Community
here.
Development Director.
Right here. Thank you.
Or successor, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So what I didn't see in here is something that we discussed in particular in design review, but I think we discussed it at planning as well during the hearing on the Now, which is our first fully digital,
Three-dimensional
digital board. And one of the concerns I expressed at that time was based on a lot of the links you sent us about different digital, 3D digital boards around the world, were that there were images that popped out and there were images that drew you in. And we couldn't find the language for that at the time, but my concern was that the images that popped out, and this gets back to your 1 second refresh rate issue, would be startling. In particular, I think there was an image in Japan or something where a tiger literally jumped out of this giant, video screen onto the traffic. In that case, it was people, so they weren't crashing into each other as much. But we didn't have it in our code, and we discussed it at the time, is that maybe it's something that should be addressed. So I couldn't see that in here, and I wondered if that was discussed at all.
It was probably discussed a long time ago, but it didn't make it into this particular version, and I don't have any language for you at the ready. I'm open to any suggestions, though, for that.
Okay.
I'm not sure how we, the very fact of it being 3D means it will do that, jumping out or pulling you in. So I'm not sure if we want 3D billboards, we can't then say you can't be 3D. So I'm not sure what the balance is there, but I see what you're saying. That could be startling when you're driving,
Right.
I think is probably what you're saying.
We saw one that was downtown LA, and it was like a hotel room, and it drew you into the hotel room, and it walked you through it, and the bed turned down, and I don't know what else happened. But it was something that drew you in and didn't startle you. And that was my concern at the time with the now, because people driving up La Cienega and on both directions on Sunset, all of a sudden, something shocks you. Even if you're not paying attention to the billboard, it's something that's coming at you out of the corner of your eye. And, how do we address that? I mean, we don't want to take away their creative abilities, but at the same time, back to traffic safety, et cetera, what is the language, and should we say anything?
So I think the answer here is that this is a pretty general application to lighting and boards in general on the Sunset Strip.
Mm-hmm.
And something that you're speaking of, to your point, is very site specific, where there could be some place in Japan where it's a lot of pedestrians in the view place, or it could be a place where there's cars. And so I think this is something that's perfect to discuss when we talk about the development agreement for a project like that when it comes forward. And to the point made earlier, in the development agreements, we do have that ability to negotiate in different regulations for that are site-specific and project-specific and make sense in that context. So I think that's probably the better place for that rather than trying to make it fit here.
Yes, and that's great, thank you. Yes, the development agreement is our vehicle for addressing those things. I guess it was back to definitions and, just having some basic definitions for whatever. I'm sure the people in the digital community have words for it. What are the outies and the innies of digital display? But, okay. I do have a question for the biologist, okay, about the wildlife study.
Okay. His name is Brock.
Okay. In particular, I'm assuming he can hear me while you do your voodoo.
There he is. Okay.
The study was done about wildlife north of Sunset. But one of the big issues with light and light trespass, et cetera, is migratory birds. So, your discussion about it's, the light of the moon, well, yes, the moon triggers migratory patterns, et cetera, et cetera. So I was just curious as if there was any discussion of any wildlife outside of, that is still part of our community, that passes through our community, but isn't necessarily, in a burrow in someone's hillside on north of Sunset.
We did not address effects on migratory birds as part of this review. We looked at whether or not there were special status species, so species that are listed, proposed for listing, fully protected species of special concern, and there was no suitable habitat for those species within the zone that would be affected by this. The next step we took was to look at other species that were likely to occur in that zone, and all of those species were either non-native species or species that are more urban tolerant. Things like skunks, raccoons, and to some degree Cooper's hawk, but other bird species as well.
And so that was the lens of our evaluation. We were not looking at the possible effects of migratory birds through that downtown or down the strip itself, or above it, really. The zone of glare and illuminance the effects of glare and of illuminance seem to drop off pretty quickly. I think the closest area of habitat that we looked at was about 640 feet away. And by that time, glare was determined to be very low and illuminance was less than full moon's worth.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Chair, I think that's the bulk of my questions for now.
Any additional questions from commissioners?
Yeah,
Lombardi.
just two really quick questions. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm curious about the observations of some of the larger billboards that are existing and their luminance values relative to the context of some of the limits that are being prescribed in this amendment, and if there's concerns there or how we navigate that, right? Because there are a few large billboards currently installed, and I know that there's some data, but I wasn't necessarily correlating the size of the billboard to the table, to the recorded measurements. So at a high level, I'm wondering if we feel like we're in check there, or if there's a scenario where we've got a brighter thing next to something that's dimmer, that's the same size happening down the road.
Well, two things. All of the projects to this stage have been evaluated based upon the existing policy, which stipulated 1.4 foot candles maximum at the residential property line. And there have been many projects that were revised to comply with that standard. So even though there are projects that have been approved with areas greater than 1,000 square feet, those signs were either oriented away from the residential properties or distant enough from the residential properties that they didn't exceed the 1.4 foot candle threshold.
Yeah, I think my question is actually about the recorded luminance values.
Well, I'm saying they're all at 300 candelas per meter squared. That's the standard today, and they're all tested against that standard. I would say generally, most of the tests come back at less than 300.
Less than.
Right, so many of them are at 200 or less than 200.
Yep.
So even though they're larger scale signs, they're not necessarily operating at the maximum luminance even today.
Okay. And so that's what I saw in the data too, in my scan through it, but there's a lot of it there. But what I wasn't quite able to discern was if it's 200 candela is per square meter, is that then within the limit of a sign of that size?
Well, again, I think
new policy.
The amendments that we're proposing are a prescriptive method that would regulate it for the conditions where the sign was relatively close to a residential property. If you were an applicant and you had a sign that wasn't close to a residential property, I assume the applicant could submit a study that showed that it didn't have an impact. Okay. You know, this would be, if you're in compliance, you're not required to do the study, right? You're just following the regulations.
But we have large signs currently, right, that are above the limit, that are maybe held to a different standard than a new sign that would come through. No?
Well, again, I would just say all the signs that have been approved are meeting the policy limits of 1.4 foot candles. So they are either no greater than 300 candelas per meter squared, or they're not creating a light trespass impact. So this is really to preclude someone from submitting a sign that's, say, 4,000 square feet, and it's right across the street from a residential property. If it was 4,000 square feet and it's across the street from a commercial property, it wouldn't create an impact. So it's that worst case condition that I think the policy is intended to address.
Okay, I guess the way I'm looking at it, like a scenario, for example, a sign that is 1,500 square feet and it has a luminance of 250 candela per square meter measured that's existing, and then another one is placed next to it, and that one is held to a limit of 200 based on this table. I mean, it's just, I'm just saying that there's a, right, that this could happen.
I can answer that the one we have that is operational currently, its size and the rate at which it's operating is consistent with this table.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. Like, we don't feel, I guess there's more digging in the data to compare it to the sizes, but we don't have a variance in terms of what we're looking at today versus what's out there currently.
The one that immediately comes to mind is the one across from the Andaz, but that's not 1,000 square feet. It's very bright, but it's
The
small.
Pendray is, there were the Sunrose, the hotel across the street.
No, it was a little commercial one that pointed.
It's the oldest one, I
Yeah,
think.
that pointed
It's
Predates.
an NBC.
east.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
On the
Both of
south
those,
side.
that one that you're mentioning and the one that I mentioned are predate the Sunset Arts
Right,
Advertising
yeah,
Program.
they're
Yeah.
old. They're very
Right,
old.
correct.
But that one was very bright.
Correct. It was outdated technology.
Yeah. Okay.
My other question was signage and directionality. I'm not super up to speed on all the signage technology, but I have the understanding that some of these signs are now directing the light downward more and being less Lambertian. But your assumption in these calculations was that it was Lambertian, it was omnidirectional, it was not. Okay.
Exactly. There are technologies that could shield the light or direct it, as you mentioned, but we did not assume that to be the baseline. In other words, the applicants could submit, that's what I was saying, they could always present a lighting study or a type of lighting technology that redirected the light and proved that it wasn't creating an impact, right? But that's on the applicant, that's not assumed as the baseline.
Yeah, it's a challenging thing to identify, right? Like if a sign comes forward and it's large, what is the technology they are using? And then what is the assumption of that calculation? And are they accounting for that scenario in their calculation or not? So I don't know what to note there other than that it's just our typical, right, like the thoroughness of reviewing docs.
You're the expert.
I think it's awareness, right? I don't know what we can do other than I'm flagging that that's something that needs to be, looked at when the time comes, right?
The rest of us are just going to say it looks bright.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't.
What is the assumption?
If I could just make one comment. I think our goal in the study recommendations was to regulate the amount of light and the luminance, not the means and methods of how it was being generated or directed, because the technology will advance and change. The regulation is really the amount of light that's either incident at that residential property or visible from that residential property. So how it's produced and how it's directed is up to the applicant, and that will make the standard more durable.
Yeah, okay, for sure. And I feel like the study is thorough and robust and a great assumption. And then the question becomes when a project comes forward, if it's using some alternate technology, is it accounting for the actual scenario?
Well, and will it achieve the goal, the stated
Yes.
goal?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if there's a way to put something in there that,
Well, just every new billboard has to be tested before it can go.
True. There's also the measured outcome on the other side too.
And if it doesn't meet that, it isn't allowed to.
Okay,
turn on.
good point. Okay, thank you. That was my other question. Thank you for clarifying that. And it seems like it's just something that's, with evolving technology, it's something to be aware of. That some of these signs are behaving a little bit differently in terms of how they're operating and distributing light than maybe a traditional sign has in the past.
I guess just to be clear, I'm far from a lighting expert. I mean, isn't there like a dial? I mean, if you've set it to 300 and you measure it and it's not 300, you turn down the dial, right?
I think it's the profile of how the light's being distributed, if it's going equally around
Right.
or if it's concentrating it more across toward a boundary. So the intensity of the light in a
Sure.
specific direction is potentially greater than equal in all directions. And that's where there's nuance to it all, where it could be, behaving differently than the assumptions in the report. So it's something that needs to be made aware of as we see specialty signs. I think that's probably going to be a more common thing that we start seeing.
And I'll just add one more thing, that we already have had times where we needed to test out the provisions in the development agreements to come out and have a retest, because we've heard from people that live nearby that say that it's bright. So we've put that in action, and it has been, we've been responsive, and I think the sign company so far has been responsive. So we haven't had to go beyond that, but there are those provisions, and we have used them so far.
That's really good information. Thank you, Jennifer. So you're saying that based on those complaints, changes have been made to the luminance?
Or we have investigated why in a certain period of time something was brighter. I think there is in the first period of operation a time when there are adjustments made. I think that's what we're learning as we go forward.
And, that's good to hear. Adjustments have actually been made.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any additional questions before we go into deliberations?
Just one. It's sort of a question that I don't necessarily expect to be answered. Well, part of it could be answered. I guess I'm thinking about how this interacts with the residential conversion zone text amendment that we considered at our last meeting. I believe that the language in these updates and in the existing code speak to residentially zoned properties. Is that correct? Okay, so if a property on Sunset Boulevard that is currently a commercial use, integrated residential uses, or became completely residential, the sign billboard would not have to change its distance or its angle to that property accordingly. Is that correct?
The way that it's written now, correct? Yes, that's and similar to other residential properties that are already on Sunset.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Hearing none, let's go into deliberations. Anyone like to start the discussion?
Well, I just think there's a couple of things that maybe could be cleaned up in the report, or sorry, I guess I should say, and the resolution. I don't know if it's worth flagging some of those first.
Sure.
Yeah. So, the first one that I think came up was adding in feet at minimum setback distance on table 2.
Okay.
And then I actually had one that I thought was maybe ambiguous. On page 9 of 14 in the actual resolution, under D, renewable energy, it says, all off-site advertising sign operations will utilize the highest available clean energy tier from the city's energy provider to the extent feasible. I guess I wonder if you can just eliminate to the extent feasible. Isn't that basically what the sentence already is saying? Highest available. It feels like it's leaving it open at the end.
Does staff have any comment on that?
I would agree.
Okay, next item.
Well, I think we discussed that maybe the last sentence on page 12 of 14 under architectural lighting just goes away.
The accent lighting
Yeah,
sentence.
otherwise I'm going to say change accent lighting into feature lighting and keep the sentence.
Sounds good.
And fixing the definition of director?
On the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Also on page 12. I counted 4. 4 corrections.
Okay.
Commissioner Lombardi, just to make sure I have it for the record, so the two definitions that you and Commissioner Hoopengarner just mentioned, the definition of director, so that would be the director of community development or successor department or designee, and then to a suggestion Ms. Davis read into the record for the definition of architectural lighting, that would be to remove the last sentence about accent lighting?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other changes?
No, those, I have the same, those 4.
Great. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
To be clear, for Mr. Rosen, I move staff report with the 4 corrections.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoopengarter. I appreciate that. We have all of those listed. I want to note this is a recommendation on policy that will then go to council, so they will consider Planning Commission's requested changes that were read into the record.
And I'll just make a note, Jennifer, that per our discussion about refresh rates and whatnot, you know, maybe take a revisit and
Yes, and I have an expert sitting next to me who I will be calling.
There you go.
Any further discussion? If none, let's go to a vote.
And the motion passes with 5 ayes, 1 recusal by Commissioner Carvalero, and 1 absent by Commissioner Solomon. There is no appeal process. This is a recommendation going forward to the City Council.
Great, thank you so much. Moving on, we do not have any new business, unfinished business, or excluded consent calendar items. Mr. Gillig, do we have any additional public comment?
Chair, we have no public comments.
Terrific. Items from commissioners. Commissioner Lombardi.
Okay, I'll go. I did not prepare very much here, but I'll just start with saying, so Secretary Gillig came over right before I started this meeting and reminded me that I started work here on the Planning Commission in, I think it was March of 2021. And you may have noticed my absence in the last couple of meetings. I have had an employment change. It's really been an exciting opportunity for me. And it felt that it was timely and a good decision for me to make. And I think there's a lot of exciting things in the work, but it comes with a lot of work, a lot of demand, and a lot of travel. And although I'm not leaving West Hollywood, I will not always be in West Hollywood anymore. And so obviously that creates a conflict with my availability here. So although I'm not truly leaving us yet, I cannot stay on in this capacity anymore. And it's interesting how things can change quickly in your life. And I wouldn't have known in January or February that this would become a reality. And even in the last month, I've been sorting out what it would mean and what my availability would be. But as you know, we do have to be here in person. With that being said, this is more likely than not my last meeting. I think that'll all be formalized after tonight's meeting. In all reality, I've missed 2 meetings, and so I'm headed toward my 3rd strike, or maybe I already have my 3rd with that departure for the wedding. So I guess what I do want to note is this has been an incredible experience for me. I have learned so much, and it's been so wonderful to be able to contribute and hear from the community and provide input. And it's really interesting up here. This is a job that I know we say it all the time, but we get a lot of heat for things, right? But it's a really exciting opportunity to kind of step out of your shoes for a minute and think about the community at large and try to be a good steward to the city of West Hollywood. So it's been an incredible experience. I don't even know where to start with what I've learned over the years. And all of my colleagues have been so incredible too. So, I mean, I'll just go with who's here right now, but Commissioner Hoopengarner, you were so wonderful when I got started with really bringing me up to speed and helping me understand both what our focus was and what to look for, and you know, how to be thorough. And I really appreciate your insight on everything, and the level of detail that you have is truly impressive. Commissioner Jones, you've just got so much good intuition and sort of wisdom with things, and so much precedent in history too. So you've always been an amazing resource to talk with, and enjoyed every moment that we get to talk about planning commission things when we can. And Commissioner Gregoire, it was amazing to be with you as chair and vice chair, and I really enjoyed our collaboration together and getting to know you better. And Commissioner Harris, I know it's been quick, but I tried to do what I could while I was here, and you know, you can always give me a call. Well, that's any of you too, but I do want to be here as a resource. I wish I were not leaving, but it feels like it's really the only option I have right now. I moved here into West Hollywood in 2014, and I've been so happy to call home for the last 11 years, and I'm not leaving. And although the next year or two is going to have a lot of transition for me and I won't be here as much, I like to think that there's really exciting plans that I'll be able to talk about down the road. So with that being said, thank you. I really appreciate my time here, and I wish you all the best. I really do.
Anybody else? Commissioner Hoopengarter?
I'm going to try not to cry. You will be greatly missed. For many things, your measured and reasoned chairing of our meetings, and damn, our lighting guy. I cannot say how much I've enjoyed working with you, and it's going to be a big, big hole in our commission, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch, but I wish you the very, very best. And if he starts over, does he get another 8 years in a couple years? Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Harris?
Yeah, it was great to meet you. You know, we got to chat a few times, and yeah, I'm excited for. I always like to say that the feeling of open possibility in my life is my favorite feeling. So that's exciting, and congratulations on the open possibility.
Vice Chair Jones?
Yeah, I do. I mean, Michael, I'm going to miss you so much, and I'm, you know, you never know where life is going to take you, and I think it's incredible you're willing to take the risk and take the leap and do what's right for you and grow and change in your life, but you will be very missed here. And I just want to note that if the next time we have a meeting with this much detail about lighting, someone shows up as an expert, you know who I talk to. And his name is Michael Lombardi. I also just want to say that, you know, for a lot of us on this commission, I mean, you started during the pandemic, and we had been meeting virtually, and the first time I actually ever met Michael was at LAX, and he was wearing a mask, and I told my husband, I'm like, hey, I think that's a guy on Planning Commission. I'm going to go introduce myself right now, which seemed crazy at the time, but it luckily was Michael, and he didn't think I was like a serial killer. But it's just actually being able to develop a relationship with you virtually and then in real time has been a real gift, and you will be really missed. But I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
I don't know what to add other than congratulations on this new work opportunity. You're going to be missed. Your contribution to tonight's meeting and discussion shows what you brought to the commission, your professional experience, and your insight. There'll be a gaping hole in this commission after tonight. Thank you so much for your service to our community, and I really, really enjoyed serving as your vice chair last year, and it was great collaborating with you more closely. So thank you so much, and please stay in touch.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the kind words. And I've been so focused up here, I need to also look out that way. And I just want to say, our city has the most incredible staff. And it's, I mean, seriously, you all are so impressive and so professional. Secretary Gillig, you always take my calls. And you have a solution in place, and I appreciate that, including more recently here. And yeah, and Jennifer Alkire, you're always so, so thorough as well, and you seem to always have an answer to everything. But look, I could go on all day, but I really think that we have a great group of people here, and so I'm going to miss you all. Thank you.
Anything else? With that, I will adjourn this meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission, Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. Actually, I believe that meeting is canceled. Our next scheduled meeting will be Thursday, October 16th, 2025, beginning at 6:30 p.m. here at the West Hollywood Park Public Meeting Room. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
These beautiful trees add tremendously to the look of Plummer Park.
Hi there, we're at the annual Kids Fair at West Hollywood Park. We've been having this event for more than 20 years. We're bringing together lots of community-based organizations and local schools and service providers together to really make an impact